Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. We begin our journey in Arizona. Throughout the next year, I will travel to as many states possible. I will research buildings, cities, and landmarks and share with viewers all that I uncover. Independently, we can decide if the question the narrative topic has merit. I believe my last series really started to unravel my ideal of American history. I'm beginning to question more and more every day. Will this ever make sense? Let's explore the narrative together. We continue our journey by exploring Montezuma Castle. Montezuma Castle National Monument protects a set of well-preserved dwellings located in Camp Verde, Arizona, which were built and used by the Sinagua people, a pre-Columbian culture closely related to the Hohokam and other indigenous peoples of the southwestern United States between approximately 1100 and 1425 AD. The main structure comprises 5 stories and about 20 rooms and was built over the course of 3 centuries. Several Hopi and Yavapai communities trace their ancestors to early immigrants from the Montezuma Castle, Beaver Creek area. Archaeological evidence proves that the Hohokam and the Hakatea settled around or in the Verde Valley. Clan members periodically returned to these ancestral homes for religious ceremonies. Neither part of the monument's name is correct. When European Americans first observed the ruins in the 1860s, by then long abandoned, they named them for the famous Aztec emperor Montezuma in the mistaken belief that he had been connected to their construction. Having no connections to the Aztecs, the Montezuma Castle was given that name due to the fact that the public had this image of the Aztecs creating any archaeological site. In fact, the dwelling was abandoned more than 40 years before the Montezuma was born, and was not a castle in the traditional sense, but instead functioned more like a prehistoric high-rise apartment complex. Montezuma Castle is situated about 90 feet up a sheer limestone cliff facing the adjacent Beaver Creek, which drains into the perennial Verde River just north of Camp Verde. It is one of the best preserved cliff dwellings in North America, in part because of its ideal placement in a natural alcove that protects it from exposure to the elements. The precariousness of the dwelling's location and its immense scale of floor space across 5 stories suggests that the Sinagua were daring builders and skilled engineers. Access into the structure was most likely permitted by a series of portable ladders, which made it difficult for enemy tribes to penetrate the natural defense of the vertical barrier. Perhaps the main reason the Sinagua chose to build the castle so far above the ground was to escape the threat of natural disaster in the form of annual flooding of Beaver Creek. During the summer monsoon season, the creek frequently breached its banks, inundating the floodplain with water. The Sinagua recognized the importance of these floods to their agriculture, but likely also potential destruction they presented to any structure built in the floodplain. The walls of Montezuma Castle are examples of early stone and mortar masonry, constructed almost entirely from chunks of limestone found at the base of the cliffs, as well as mud and or clay from the creek bottom. The ceilings of the rooms also incorporated sectioned timbers as part of roof thatching obtained primarily from the Arizona sycamore, a large hardwood tree native to the Verde Valley. The area was briefly abandoned due to the eruption of Sunset Crater volcano, about 60 miles to the north in the mid-11th century. Although the short-term impact may have been destructive, nutrient-rich sediment deposited by the volcano may have aided more expansive agriculture in later decades. During the interim, the Sinagua lived in the surrounding highlands and sustained themselves on small-scale agriculture, dependent on rain. After 1125, the Sinagua resettled the Verde Valley using the reliable watershed of the Verde River alongside irrigation systems left by previous inhabitants, perhaps including Hohokam peoples, to support more widespread farming. The region's population likely peaked around 1300 AD, with the castle housing between 30 and 50 people in at least 20 rooms. Radiocarbon dates from multiple construction beams show the cliff dwelling was probably constructed in the middle 1100 AD. with remodeling and additions in the last decades of the 1200s. A neighboring segment of the same cliff wall suggests that there was an even larger dwelling, Castle A, around the same time, of which only the stone foundations have survived. Its discovery in 1933 revealed many Sinagua artifacts and greatly increased understanding of their ways of life. The latest estimated date of occupation for any Sinagua site comes from Montezuma Castle around 1425 AD. After this, the Sinagua people apparently abandoned their permanent settlements and migrated elsewhere, as did other cultural groups in the southwestern United States around that time. The reasons for abandonment are unclear, but possibilities include drought, resource depletion, and clashes with the newly arrived Yavapai people. Due to the very little human contact since abandonment, Montezuma Castle was well preserved. It was heavily looted in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, though other Sinagua sites have remained more or less intact. Because of the rise in settlers, tourists, and industries in or surrounding Montezuma Castle, the monument and even Verde Valley has been threats to the preservation of Montezuma Castle. The monument itself encloses 860 acres near the geographic center of Arizona and the intersection of the Colorado Plateau and Basin and Range physiographic provinces. The dwellings and the surrounding area were declared a U.S. National Monument on December 8, 1906, as a result of the American Antiquities Act signed earlier that year. It is one of the 4 original sites designated national monuments by President Theodore Roosevelt. Montezuma Castle was added to the National Register of Historic Places on October 15, 1966. It is an easy monument to visit, just a short distance off Interstate 17 at exit 289. There is a 3rd-mile paved trail starting at the visitor center that follows the base of the cliff containing the ruins. Access to the interior of the ruins has not been allowed since 1951 due to concerns about visitors' safety and damage to the dwelling. About 400,000 tourists visit the site each year. The park is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day of the year except for Christmas. The visitor center includes a museum about the Sinagua culture and the tools they used to build the dwellings. The museum houses many artifacts such as stone tools, matates used for grinding corn, bone needles, and ornaments of shell and gemstones, which prove that the Sinagua were fine artisans as well as prolific traders. There is also a park store operated by Western National Parks Association. Montezuma Well, a detached unit of Montezuma Castle National Monument, is a natural limestone sinkhole near the town of Lake Montezuma, Arizona, through which some 1,500,000 U.S. gallons of water emerge each day from an underground spring. It is located about 11 miles northeast of Montezuma Castle. The well measures 386 feet in diameter from rim to rim and contains a near constant volume of spring water even in times of severe drought. The water is highly carbonated and contains high levels of arsenic. At least 5 endemic species, the most of any spring in the southwestern United States. Montezuma Well's steady outflow has been used for irrigation since the 8th century. Part of a prehistoric irrigation ditch is preserved near the park's picnic ground, and portions of the ditch's original route are still in use today. As with Montezuma Castle, the label Montezuma is a misnomer. The Aztec Emperor Montezuma had no connection to the site or the early indigenous peoples that occupied the area. Montezuma Well is geologically very similar to the sinkholes and cenotes found in Florida and the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. That is, a limestone cave that has collapsed to expose its subterranean water source. The well sits in the northern end of the Verde Limestone Formation. Archaeological evidence suggests that humans have lived in the Verde Valley for at least 10,000 years. The earliest signs of permanent settlement in the area appear quite a bit later, however, around 600 CE. I want to thank everyone who was kind enough with their time to watch my videos. For now, I will say goodbye to my fellow seekers. Peace, light,